C'est vraiment un plaisir d'être ici aujourd'hui, de vous parler de artificial intelligence and how it's going to change the way that you look at the business. You can tell that I've already used artificial intelligence for my photo. Don't I look 10 years younger? Isn't that incredible? And it's also taken off the COVID pounds that I put on. You know, I really enjoy these types of events because I find there's an opportunity to imagine what could be. You're taken out of your day-to-day role. You don't have the phone ringing. You don't have the pressures of your day-to-day work. And you can let your mind wander. And so this afternoon, I'd like to invite you to let your mind wander, to let it wander and think of what could be. We've heard a lot of compelling speakers today and talk about what could be. What could we do to do more? I sat in through the supply chain presentation and heard that, hey, there are opportunities to do more, opportunities to do better. So let's consider what those opportunities are. Because sometimes we as Canadians don't take those opportunities. We see study after study that say Canadian businesses, Canadian producers, Canadian individuals want to maintain the status quo. Now, the status quo is not good enough anymore. The world is changing. The world is changing very, very rapidly. And we continue to have challenges meeting our prosperity goals to maintain Canada's prosperity around the world. When we look at Canada's prosperity compared to other regions in North America, 2 provinces show up on the top 16 list. Ontario finished 14, Quebec finished 16th in the prosperity list. And then we say, well, how do we get more prosperity? Well, it's through productivity. We need to get better productivity. And we've heard for years after years after years that Canada lags in productivity to our counterparts globally. And we need to be able to then improve that productivity. And we need to then also innovate. Productivity gap is an innovation gap. It's not invention, it's not ideation. We need to innovate. We need to grab the tools, we need to be able to innovate our business processes using the tools available to us to be able to change the way that we look at how we do the work that we do. So we need to become Canada Innovation Nation. Now, innovation is often looked at as a new-to-world product, the shiny new gizmo. It's important that we look at innovation across all its outcomes, around using products in new ways and grabbing new audiences and building out new tools and driving efficiencies and iterating across things. Now, as a technology geek, you know, here are those innovations that I'm watching. Now, each of these technologies, in its own right, is increasing productivity. When you add them all together, it starts going exponential. We get that rocket ship that's changing the way that we do our world, look at our world. This is all predicated on this idea of shared computing environments, the idea of cloud computing, being able to have computing available as easily as you have electricity available. And when you think about the size of the computing infrastructures that are in place, I can speak to Microsoft's environment. We have over 200 data centers in 70 different regions around the world, literally millions of servers that are connected up with the 2nd largest network in the world. To be able to harness that power, to be able to do things like synthetic biology, to look at the DNA sequencing, great capability on demand. Put that together with collaboration, be able to collaborate with others, communicate with others more seamlessly than ever before. Tie that together with the Internet of Things, being able to put sensors in your fields, on your livestock, in your vehicles, be able to see what's going on and be able to have that connectivity. We have advanced connectivity. And we know that rural Canada is a little bit, you know, shoemaker's kids when it comes to this, and the connectivity is not there, but we have great connectivity advances. We see Telesat going to put up low Earth orbit satellites north of 50 degrees. We've got low Earth orbit satellites that are available across Canada. We have white space Wi-Fi, which is taking those old, underused TV broadcast bands and being able to connect up communities. And we have new ways to connect up communities so we can start sharing the data. And that map of North America shows the aircraft paths across the country in a 24-hour time frame, making new sense of the data that's around us, having new insights into what's happening in our own environments. Now, we as people find it very, very difficult to work with lots of data, lots of large numbers. And so we need to rely upon artificial intelligence to be able to bring that together, to synthesize that, to show us patterns in the data, to show us where there's roadblocks and stumbling blocks. be able to visualize that using augmented reality, being able to 3D print and do additive manufacturing so that we don't have to wait for that part to come into the supply chain. We can print our own parts and be able to repair our equipment. And then finally, we're on the horizon of quantum computing, changing the way that we look at how we do computing and being able to solve some of the world's toughest problems. All these tools come together to impact the business. All these tools are just there to help you then produce more. Now, many of you are kind of rolling your eyes. You say, John, you're not telling me something new. I'm a producer and I'm using these tools all the time. I'm flying drones, I'm using variable rate application, I'm understanding the canopy before I grow, I understand where there's blight in my area. John, hey, agriculture is an area where we're really advanced in moving these things along. Well, there are some pockets, but we need to continue that pressure. We need to continue it throughout that whole particular environment. Now, this year has been the year of AI, or the last year was the year of AI. We will have seen ChatGPT. How many people had the chance to use ChatGPT? A few people in the room. Fastest growing social network or application on the web. In the period of 2 months to get to 100 million subscribers. Really taking the imagination, capturing the imagination of communities. And I have to tell you, I've been traveling more in the last year than I did pre-COVID. Boards of directors, presidents of corporations, other large groups, all asking, how does AI change my business? How do I use that to transform? How do I innovate around this? And ChatGPT has almost become the Kleenex of AI. Right? So everyone's saying, how do I use ChatGPT? And they've forgotten about other modes of AI. And in Canada, we've got a particularly big challenge because in addition to this wanting to maintain the status quo, people are frightened by AI. Year after year, study after study shows that Canadians are distrustful, are fearful of AI. The first one is here on my left, is a Deloitte Touche study from 5 years ago. And it says, Canada, if we're going to seize the opportunity of AI, we need to overcome our mistrust in AI. And then they asked the people that they surveyed, they said, well, how many people can actually describe accurately what AI is? And anyone guess the percentage of people that felt comfortable describing AI? 4%. 4% of people surveyed could understand what AI does. And I've experienced this firsthand. I was at the Chamber of Commerce in Kitchener-Waterloo and talking to small business owners. And I asked them, I said, so how is AI going to change your business? And they said, John, I'm a plumber. I didn't like math. I don't have data science. I don't have the data. I can't use AI for my business. And the stylist said something very similar. And the baker said something very similar. And then I asked, well, did you use a wayfinding app this morning in order to get to this meeting? And they said, darn right, I used a wayfinding app. That's AI. When you unlocked your phone with your thumbprint, how did you do that? That's AI. When you took that picture in low light and it was able to display that photo, that's AI. We use AI in our day-to-day lives, and AI helps us in many, many ways. And so it's important that we get comfortable and understand that this is not all T-800s. It's not the robots chasing Will Smith through Los Angeles. Right? These are regular tools that help us. And over the last little while, we've actually seen this huge shift away from the mathematicians and now to what is called a democratization of AI, making these tools as easy to use as you would normal office tools. Imagine your life if you didn't have spreadsheets. Oh, glorious. Wouldn't that be glorious without spreadsheets? But imagine without Excel, right? That's democratized the spreadsheet and financial planning. AI trusts to do the same. However, we need to adopt it. We need to get there and be able to get trust in it. The KPMG study here shows Canada at the lowest in all the nations that were surveyed in their adoption of AI. We are at the 50% adoption rate as the US companies are for adoption of AI. And so that prosperity gap, that productivity gap is going to increase. And we heard how the adoption of digital technologies are really impacting things across the border. So I get it. There's great opportunity, but we need to be clear-eyed about the risk. We know that there's bias. We know that sometimes these things go off the rail. We know that there's safety concerns. So let's seek out those opportunities, but be clear-eyed about the risks and address those. We've been on this AI journey for many years. I've had the good fortune to be on the AI journey at Microsoft for the better part of 8 years. I lead Microsoft Canada's responsible AI team, and we've made the pronouncement that we will not sell AI that infringes on human rights, has the potential to harm individuals, or causes consequential service. And we've put in place these principles to guide the work that we've done. And we've actually foregone revenue in saying, no, we're not going to provide AI in those ways. So you can have trust and confidence in those approaches. So let's talk about traditional AI and ML. We have vision tools, help us make sense of the world around us in video and pictures. We have voice tools that allow us to do transcription. Many people use voice to text. We have language tools that allow us to do automatic translation, like translating English into Inuktitut up in Nunavut. We're quite proud of that. And we have traditional language tools. Now you say, John, this is all just kind of scientific, right? Make this real. Well, okay, the Bay of Darwin, they had a concern about global warming and the species decrease in the Bay of Darwin. And so they wanted to take a census of the fish. And so they put people in wetsuits, and they dropped them in the Bay of Darwin, and they said, here, go count fish with your wax pencil and your piece of paper. Well, it turns out the Bay of Darwin not only has fish, it's got these big seagoing crocodiles that are in this and putting people at risk. And so they said, can we do this with AI? And so they put AI on an underwater drone, and they were able to distinguish between the different types of fish. And the reason I like this slide is not only because of sea crocodiles and keeping people safe, but it really provides us a different perspective on how AI is actually presented to individuals. We often have this misperception that it's like the Roman Colosseum, a big thumbs up and a big thumbs down, and there's no human creativity. There's no critical thinking involved, that we simply take these things at face value. You'll notice the boxes that go around these fish. That provides a percentage accuracy, a probability of what the computer thinks these fish are. And so humans remain in the loop. These are complementary tools and not tools that replace individuals. A big misperception in the marketplace is that these AI tools are going to replace individuals. We will continue to require human critical thinking, nuanced approaches to things, being able to have that knowledge, be able to decide things in different ways. You can imagine if you're an insurance adjuster. Some of the things are really easy to understand. A tree falls on a car, not a big issue. But some of the things are more difficult and more nuanced, and you need that human intervention. And so let's remember that that's the piece of it. So how do we see these things landing in the agricultural community? Well, one of my favorite stories was the connected cow. And you notice the cow with a sort of Fitbit on its ankle. And so here, it turns out that cows have a particular time of day when it's best to inseminate them. And that time of day doesn't happen when the sun's up. It happens to be in the early morning and whatnot. And so by connecting the cow, they were able to double their success rate in insemination of the cows because they were able to predict when was the best time to get the farmer out of bed to inseminate the cow. The next photo with the forest is I always forget the name of that computer. I'll come back to that. With the nitrogen is Farm Beats, a program to bring together different information sources, be able to fuse satellite imagery, drone imagery, and local photos to be able to understand what's happening in a crop at a particular time to help guide the application of fertilizer or pesticides. That truck that Dali created for me is a connected truck. It was part of a project we did for connected chickens. And so we want to make sure that the company wanted to make sure that the chickens had a stress-free ride from the farmer to the factory. And so connecting up trucks helped with that. Freshwater data commons, looking at Internet of Things, 200 sensors around lakes to determine water quality and what the runoff was there. Working with Land of Lakes to share data, to be able to have data between equipment and producers, to be able to better manage the dairy community there. And then finally, the connectivity that's there. Lots of opportunities to build out AI into the producer environment. Supply chain, what we just heard of earlier, is ripe for AI innovation to make sure that we have that sense of what's happening in the supply chains to really break down some of those borders. Imagine if you could understand what went in the truck at a particular time, that the locks on the back of the doors of the trucks were not tampered with, that the driver had the proper statistics, and you could simply wave at customs as you drove through because you have all that data available to you. What difference would that make into the losses that are potentially there for those types of environments? So that was traditional AI. We now get to this conversational AI. You may have heard Microsoft has a collaboration with OpenAI. The thing to learn from this is it's simply making these tools easy to use with natural language. Right? I don't know how to do a VLOOKUP in Excel, but I can ask Excel to do a VLOOKUP. Be able to use these tools as naturally as we would communicate with one another. So what can these tools do? Well, they can translate natural language. They can help us with our search capabilities, real-time translation, even help us with image recognition. Again, you say, John, that's the science gobbledygook, make this real for us. Just down the street at the Bayview Yards is a startup accelerator, and there's a company called Blue Collar AI. And what they do is they take service manuals, and in this particular case, they take a service manual from a ship. That's 10,000 pages of glorious technical detail that helps the mechanics on the ship be able to repair the ship when it's at sea. They don't take paper to sea, they have this all on a computer. But sometimes it's really difficult to understand where there's a reference for a particular pump, let's say, and understand how to fix that pump. By using these natural language tools, the mechanic can simply type in what they're looking for, and it provides the authoritative source, page number, documents, diagrams, and specifications, making it easier and faster to get to knowledge. Imagine what that means to an individual trying to repair a harvester in the field, understand how that works when they're remote and perhaps on a Sunday. So being able to have that natural language tool to be able to do that, and then go that step further. And so using augmented reality and these tools to be able to have guided repairs. Have someone looking over their shoulder to say, yes, that doesn't look quite right, that's what needs to be repaired. Changing the way that we look at the business that's before us and being able to respond and react. All this is predicated on data, and we hear a lot about data. Now, sometimes we need a gentle nudge from our frame of reference. We as people like to anchor our thoughts on something that we learned perhaps long ago. And I find with data, sometimes we look at an anchor point maybe 10 years ago. When I started in the open data community, there was a big boom in 2012, 2013, with a number of open data initiatives, both the federal government and provincial governments, also municipal governments. The world has changed. The way that we think about data has changed. If I were to ask you about privacy of personal information, we all understand that. We as Canadians have a passion for privacy and personal information, but sometimes that goes a step too far where we're not dealing with personal information, and it stops us from doing things. We've got new tools to help us. We have tools to help describe the data that's available to us. We have tools to be able to share data. In the past, you couldn't get there from here. I'd come with the wire, someone else would come with the wire, and we wouldn't be able to connect. We can work with different types of data today. We have the ability to share data in a way that allows us to maintain our personal control over data. I know for producers, there's a large debate over, hey, this is my data. I got to create this data. How do I help safeguard that data as mine? But share it with the community in a way that helps us all. There's ways to do that through tools like differential privacy or synthetic data. There's big work on little data. Give me just the amount of data that I need to be able to make decisions. So we've got great tools that are available to change the way that we think about how we look at our business. This is all coming to transform the way that we look at the way that we work together. To empower workers to engage through the supply chain, optimize operation, transform business. You know, I boil this all down to putting the constituent at the center, putting the producer at the center. What does the producer need from these tools, and look at how you can make their life easier? What does the shipper need? Putting the shipper at the middle and looking at all those tools. As we engage our government leaders, let's have them put their constituent at the center, not their policy at the center. Because often we see policy outcomes drive policies. That's what they're paid to do. And so how do we put the constituent at the center so we can understand how to remove those policy barriers, some of which we heard of earlier. As we think about moving forward, my thoughts around how AI is being deployed are guided by this book written at the University of Toronto, Power and Prediction, and it looks at the economics of AI. Now, first reason I bought this book was because the authors admitted they got it wrong with their first book. So this is their second book. So the first book, they got it wrong. And they said, look, when we're looking at adoption of platforms, of these general purpose technologies, what we'll see is that first you'll come out with point solutions. So you might have a vision tool that tells you canopy, or you might have a tool that is able to predict ovulation or those type of things. So very, very narrow focused. Not a lot of rules and interoperability required there. We then get to application solutions. So think of some of these chatbots or co-pilots, right? Being able to go in and make life easier. We start to see that evolve. We've seen the same thing with electricity. We've seen the same thing with steam and the railroads. We then have a little bit of a quiet time, and then we get to systemic change. You can imagine if a restaurateur, and this is an example from the book, uses AI to predict their use of a particular item. And so instead of getting 300 of an item every week without fail, 1 week they get 50, 1 week they get 75, next week they get 120, depending on what the demand is. Well, that's great for the restaurateur, but what about their supplier? Now all of a sudden their supplier is left with a surplus. Now their supplier needs to change. So the supplier gets AI. And so then they work together, supplier and the restaurateur. And then, well, now the supplier has to go to the bulk warehouse, and then down the stream and down the stream. So the rules and the trickle effect take some time to implement. And so what we see happening with AI is this trickle effect will have to come through to be able to leverage and change the systems that we rely upon for those for our productivity and prosperity. You know, 20 minutes is a short time to try to go soup to nuts on AI. And certainly, as a techie in an audience of people that are far smarter than me in this particular field, it's a little bit daunting. Hopefully, I've helped clarify, demystify some of what AI is, help you on that journey to gaining a little bit more trust in AI, and also help you imagine what could be through the use of these tools and transform the way that you do your business. And with that, I'd like to hand it back to our organizers.